right, I am here with a timeless edition. And when I say timeless, I mean this information you're going to get today is timeless. We've got Telton Hall. He's going to introduce himself in a minute. I'm going to tell you some embarrassing facts about him. Wait a minute. No, I'm not. I'm not going to tell you embarrassing facts about him. I'm just going to tell you that he's been a friend of mine for a long time. And between his financial knowledge and my Italian looks, we're going to send you a video that's going to knock your socks off. So get ready for this. We're going to talk about marriages and families and finances. You know what we've said, that like sex and money are the two things that a lot of couples get messed up about. And so we're going to help solve that in some fashion today. Telton, give them just a quick intro of you and a rundown of what you do.
Sure, you bet. So I'm a certified financial planner. I have really two different arms of my business. One is a personal financial planning practice where I work with middle or upper middle class or affluent individuals and do retirement planning for them. And then the other arm of my business is just a passion that I couldn't hold off any longer. It's really creating almost a do-it-yourself, like a handheld do-it-yourself program for folks that are like, listen, I'm done with this. I need something this weekend where I can spend 3 hours and feel like I've got my retirement plan clearly in front of me.
Wow.
That's really the second arm of that business. That's called the Retire Confidently program. As far as kind of a backstory, this podcast is fun. I've been able to go on a lot of different shows and podcasts, and I have to explain to them where Zion National Park is, or where this tiny little town that I'm from, which is Virgin, Utah, named after the Virgin River. They don't have any idea, but here, at least some of your local listeners, they'll know where Virgin, Utah is, and they'll usually say, I knew that town was there. I've never met anybody from Virgin. It's so small.
They almost expect you to be like an old farmer stooped over if you're from Virgin. But, my 3 listeners from Virgin might know that they might even know you.
They might know the Hall family.
Awesome. So, Telton, how long have you been doing this, the helping people with their retirement?
Yeah, so coming out of college, I couldn't decide if I wanted to be an educator and a coach or a financial advisor. I had a really, really distinct impression when I learned about the baby boomer generations, the challenges that they'll face, as well as their hopes and their dreams. And I felt like here and in this career is where I can make a huge, huge positive impact. So that was 2006, got my first licenses. So 2007, just in time, all my friends and my closest family were all clients. And then we went through that great recession together.
Oh. And you kept your family.
We kept my family, kept my friends, kept clients. It was hard. Like, I look back and think, like, that was rough. That really did have a major impact.
Holy smokes. And what a way to start, right?
Right. It was
we could probably spend an hour just on that trauma.
Oh, yeah.
I bet. We won't do that to you.
But I think it's beneficial you bring that up, because listeners should be clued in to that they have gone through what we're going through right now. Then the framework for what we're going through right now is, if we broaden the scope just a little bit, that 2008, 2009, the Great Recession is what we call that.
Yep.
And then most folks that are 50s, 60s, thinking about retiring now, they're going to remember those 70s and 80s and high interest rates back then. We think this is high now. That was high.
I remember my first home mortgage, I believe, was like 12% interest in 89ish.
Oh, yeah, I believe it. In fact,
and we kind of thought it was good.
Yes, that was a good rate back then, for sure. And so that time frame, and then also you've actually taught me a little bit about this. This is something that Matt gets credit for teaching me, is this impact intergenerationally.
Yeah.
Right? How something that affected our grandparents, we actually see that show back up in our life without even really realizing it. Well, the Great Depression, I mean, that had this huge ripple down effect and touches us all.
Yeah, that little subconscious voice in the back of your head that creates some fear, or in some cases maybe some arrogance, based upon however you take that information and run with it. But we create these narratives for sure.
Yeah. And so it's actually helpful to recognize, well, I probably got some trauma around that part of my financial planning a beneficial part of that would actually help me clean up that narrative a little bit.
That makes a ton of sense. Now, Telton, we were talking earlier, there's some things that like when I want to learn how to do these podcasts, I'll generally like spend some hours on YouTube, and I'll try to learn how to do the sound, and I'll try to learn how to do the camera stuff. If I want to, fix a motorcycle, I generally like jump on YouTube or jump. So my kids taught me YouTube.
Oh, yeah.
It's like you can like type in searches and it sends you information. It's weird. But anyway, so I'll try to learn myself, right? I jumped in and tried to figure out a retirement plan for myself, and it is baffling. Like, I'm telling you, there is something about finances and numbers that, like, the first thing I get is I get like really confused, and then I get physically tired, and then I get bored, and then I get like hopeless feeling, and then I think I'm just gonna die and not retire because it's too hard. So there's a reason we have financial advisors. It's for most of us that don't spend our lives looking at numbers and interest rates and saving plans. Like, how many of you want to keep track of the market every day, right? How many of you how often do you look at the market?
Oh, I mean, obviously daily, but depending on what's going on, we're tracking that very closely. And frankly, we're paying a lot of money to third parties, where when we're in a meeting with a client, or I'm building a program or a course to help a client, we've got various different teams that we pay a bunch of money to every year to track every movement. And even when we say market, there's easily 12 to 13 major markets that we talk often about, like the S&P 500, that could be a market, but really we should refer to it as the markets, because there's at least 12, if not 13 major investment markets that folks either should, or they generally, without realizing it, already have a piece of that as part of their portfolio. So yeah, we're tracking it all the time, and we're thinking about it all the time.
Now, how many of you completely tuned out? That's exactly what I'm talking about. We don't want to do what Telton just did, right? How many of you want to know that? Like, I'm glad I've got a friend that knows that. Like, I'm so glad. You rattled that off like I can rattle off like a genogram for a family system and tell you what the lines mean. But some mean that they're in chaos, some mean they're in conflict, some mean somebody's dead. I can teach you all of that, and your eyes would glaze over, and you'd say, why do I care?
That's right. Oh, no.
So the reason we want a financial advisor is because we want somebody watching our money for us. Like literally, as cars get more new tech, and as they get more computerized, we really take them to a mechanic, right?
Right.
I don't try to even change the spark plugs really anymore. And so I don't even know if they have spark plugs anymore. I don't know. So the idea is get professional help where you need it, so that you don't have to spend your hours learning that 15-second moment that we all started thinking of something else. And so, Telton, what do you do for people as a financial advisor, and what is the main question that you pose to people as they come in? Like, where do you start with people as they come for financial advice and planning? That's probably my question.
Yeah, sure. So there's kind of two different approaches that we'll take with folks. One is the actual financial aspect of it. Where are you on your investment accounts? A lot of folks are familiar with their 401k, or they have some other version of a 401k at work, and their savings accounts and various investments. A lot of folks in Utah, we work with a lot of folks that are in the Utah retirement system, or they work at the different universities that have TIA systems, and they get statements on that, so they're aware of that, and so there's that piece of it where we gather that. But what I have found is actually even more important to that is you actually start with their values, and this is a question.
Interesting.
Like with the handheld do-it-yourself program. That's actually the first step. Is before we start building the spreadsheet out of your retirement income plan, we're going to sit for just a few minutes and talk about what's important to you about money, and actually go through the action of typing or handwriting out. When I say what's important to you about money, what comes to mind, and write down those 3 or 4 things. And then here's what's super interesting. The next question after that is, are there experiences in your life that have dictated or have driven those core values. And that's where stuff that that Matt does, I have found as I've worked with Matt, I mean, I really got introduced to him as just somebody that's brilliant when it comes to all things psychological, all things mental. So I said, Matt, like, I want to work with you just on my thinking around business and business development. And it's worked. It's been fantastic. Like, I got one business where it's like, I don't need to do anything else, just take care of people, but I have this passion. Can I do it? And he's helped me clean up that, really the thinking around that.
Nice.
That's one of the benefits of actually saying, what are the experiences in my life that have helped develop or inform these values? And then decide, do we like those experiences? Do we like the way we interpret those experiences?
Think about what Telton just said. Now, as a family counselor, and then more specifically a marriage counselor, and sometimes working with pretty high conflict couples, it's interesting that when it comes to money, my first question is, like, what is your, what does money mean to you? What is the value of money to you? And inevitably, I've got somebody that'll say, like, it means security. It means that I can feel safe. And another one, it's like, man, it's a tool to buy stuff.
Right.
And can you see the collision already?
Right.
Like, I need 6 months of bills put aside. I need cryptocurrency.
Right.
You know, and I want to, like, throw everything into Bitcoin because I just got a feeling. And then but I don't feel safe. And so you can see there's no, like, real middle ground there.
Right.
And so those values that they both bring in, those two cultural values that they bring into the marriage, has to be resolved.
Right.
And good financial advice and some psychological work to help them realize where they're coming from and to find that neutral place to stand. That's my first task. And it sounds like you're similar.
Yeah, that's super fun. That's right in line with the first question you asked.
Yeah.
Is like, what does money mean to you? And let's get that out on the table. Because really, that's the first step. Is first you have to be asked the question, and then your job is to then try to articulate that. And there's probably in your sessions, in some of our sessions, there's kind of a moment there that's awkward, and that's okay. It's like, it's all right. Like, we're in this together. Maybe it takes a second to be like, well, I don't know. I mean, money's always been, and then our brain starts to think, and we start to draw on these experiences, and then we can get that out on the table. Because once that's on the table, now we can start to say, okay, do we like that? Do we want to change it? How do we invest for that, or how do we save for that?
Wow, that in my office, that awkward moment is similar. It's like this realization, and I can't tell you how many people out there. They have this deep belief that everybody looks at it like they do. So the guy that it's a tool to spend and to get stuff, they're a bit baffled when the spouse says, no, don't spend it. Let's put it away. And he's thinking, what in the world is she talking about? Put it away. It just sits there. Like, what? Right. That's no fun.
Right.
And inevitably,
that's not exciting.
Yeah.
That's not fun. That's not entertaining.
And picture her saying, oh, it is so exciting. It's like almost intimate to have that sitting there. So I know that we could lose jobs and we'd be safe. And he'd go, we can live in our car. We got it. And to realize that people look at it different is often a bit of a like step back and like, oh, I mean, everybody doesn't look at it like I do.
Yeah.
And then they don't really have the knowledge of, all right, so we're going to save some and spend some. There's some neutral ground where they negotiate. But then there's this big mystery of, like, do we throw it on, like, Bitcoin by ourselves? Or do we do something more intelligent than perhaps that? And no offense to those of you investing in Bitcoin, but the idea is that there's probably advice out there.
Yes, there's absolutely advice.
So,
and there's my experience has been that there's a way to find an easy medium where both people are pretty encouraged. They're pretty optimistic about their plan going forward. It's like they're at odds until you take it out of them and their head and put it out on a table. And we're saying out on a table really just in conversation, but specifically in retirement planning, like in this Retire Confidently program that I'm building, we stick it on a spreadsheet. Like, we don't even pay for expensive, like we do in our office, but for the folks that are doing this themselves, we're just going to use an Excel spreadsheet or
Wow.
a Google sheet.
So I can actually keep up with it
You
after
could.
you set it up.
Absolutely. Like you would, in fact, you would set it up. You would be looking over my shoulder while I did this for another real life person that's retired. You'd be plugging in your own numbers. And then after that, it's on your own Excel. Finally, you understand it and you own it and you can update it. And the key is it's out of your head. And in fact, I would love your take on this. It's like magical that happens when it goes from like, this is in my head and so I'm worried, I'm concerned, and there's conflict around it, to now it's out here, it's on a piece of paper or on a spreadsheet. And all of a sudden it's like, my angst turns into optimism.
Yeah.
Right there in that moment.
Telton, those of you that have been following my YouTube channel, which by the way, hit subscribe, shameless plug, I know. They've listened to a similar thing where what Telton just described is that amazing process of creating this vision in your head, like this almost spiritual creation, this vision that has no substance and form until you consider it and think about it and kind of get this picture in your mind. Then you gather the resources physically to put that together. So you get the spreadsheet, you get it up on a screen, you get ready to type in the numbers. Then you get somebody that helps you with the numbers. Now you've got a data plan that's there in front of you. So you took it from vision to the actual creation of being able to use it, and that's adrenaline packed. And then you got a couple that we're fighting. Now they're there talking about what they're gonna make together. They're looking at something outside. They've externalized the problem.
Yep.
They're having fun talking about it. They're messing with the numbers and seeing how it can grow, and they're throwing in some things. They might even throw in like, what if we did this and it goes the wrong way? And then they go, oh, let's not do that. And they're laughing with each other.
Yep.
This is a couple that was almost coming to blows just a week ago.
Right.
And now you've got this vision that's now shared by two people is exactly what you just talked about.
I love it. You light up when you're talking about it. I feel the same way inside because, you think about it over 18 years now, that's thousands of retirement planning sessions.
Wow.
Right before or during and after retirement. And I'm telling you, thousands of times, it works every time when you do exactly what you're talking about. Take it out of your head and then
put it in front of you.
Yeah, put it in front of you. Now all of a sudden it's like, oh, okay, well maybe we're behind, or maybe we're right on track, or maybe we're ahead. It doesn't matter. The outcome is now we're working together to accomplish what we want to, as opposed to having conflict before it was even dialed in. So awesome. I love it.
So you guys are noticing we've taken you from like, why do we care about financial planning? Do we need an advisor? Do we need someone? And we know we do, because unless you're like Telton that enjoys this, it's almost like you either are going to enjoy it or you're not. There's probably no real middle ground, because if you enjoy it and want to do the numbers and want to look at the markets all day, then you're suited for the job. If that doesn't work for you, if your ADHD brain just runs away with you, you just as well get an advisor. So we've taken you from do you want an advisor? We've taken you to some questions of what an advisor can do for you. Now they want to know, is there a consistent warning that you give people? Is there anything they can just latch onto as a watch out for this? There might not be, but I'm just curious if there is.
Yeah, there are a couple. There are a couple really good ones. So let me start with, here's just something really, really simple. And it's something that, it just makes me want to go from calm and happy to want to wring somebody's neck. And it's the jokers out there that are dishonest, right? Your Bernie Madoffs, obviously everybody knows that name because they were so dishonest. But
we watched Netflix and we saw the movie.
There you go.
The Bernie Madoff movie.
Everybody knows now, this is dishonest. And so one warning that's so simple, it's so easy, is that when you look at people that want to be dishonest, that they generate their own reports, their own performance reports, their own tax reporting documents. When you're contributing to IRAs, for instance, you get a tax form that's prepared by the investment company. And legitimate companies, they separate themselves. We've got the advisor here, that's your local touch point, and then there's some really big, large firm behind the scenes, your TD Ameritrades, your Bank of New York, Pershing LLCs, your Fidelities. That's where your statements actually come from. Your
So-
statements and your tax documents actually come from there. So that's a simple warning.
So if they get a statement from Joe Schmo
Right.
and
Joe
his,
Schmo,
and
their
his
advisor.
picture at the top, and this is, trust me, this is all you need, worry.
Yeah.
Okay.
I would say that's a warning. You
Yeah.
know, I think anything legitimate, it's going to be held. For one thing, your money's being held at some entity, and you want that entity to be multi-billion-dollar and 50 or 100 years old.
That makes sense.
And
So
you want a local contact where you love your advisor and you have a relationship, but you don't necessarily want them holding your funds. You want those held at these big financial institutions. So that's a simple warning to look for.
so kind of a check and balance.
Yes,
And
absolutely.
so know your advisor, know you can trust your advisor, and then your little own due diligence check is make sure that it's not all contained to one person that can play a shell game.
You got it. That's exactly right. So there's a geeky warning that I would give you. Here's more of a psychological warning that I would give you. Is it's very good to be informed about the news and about markets and about investment decisions and about pure investment accounts versus insurance versus annuities. All of that's super good to be informed about that. What I would give you as a warning is that when your information that you're taking in turns your perspective pessimistic, then it's not helpful and it's not accurate, because in its simplest sense, like boil it down. This should be a rhetorical question, but it's worth it to actually answer the question. If the markets are not here in 15 years and the government's not here in 15 years, and so the Fed's not here in 15 years, is retirement...
Every conspiracy theorist is now listening.
Yeah,
They're ready.
they're in. Like, is retirement as we know it going to be here? And I think the answer is no. Like, that's a different set of rules. That's a different situation. And so if that happens, then we're talking about we're playing a different game at that point, and we'll all be in that together. But if we're doing retirement planning, then that's our current definition of retirement. And so if the market is here in 15 years and the government is here in 15 years, and we want to be part of that, and we want to retire and have investments that are kicking off income while we're taking an extra trip or spending more time with the grandkids, then we need to be part of that economy that's still going to be here.
Oh, okay.
So the warning is when you turn pessimistic, like it's not going to work and I need to put everything in gold and that might be the only safe haven, it's like, okay, you've turned, your pessimism is turned into a costly mistake, and it's going to keep you from a successful retirement as we now envision retirement.
Like what I got from Telton just now, tell me if I nailed it. It's if I put all my cash in my mattress because I feel safer, it's there, I know I've got it, and the government disappears and banking disappears, I've just got paper in my mattress.
Yeah.
So what at that point, we're all going to barter.
Right.
And so it doesn't matter. So it's not saving me anything to not at least trust the market, because if the market's not here, it doesn't matter that it's in my mattress. And if the market's here, it was stupid that it was in my mattress.
You got it.
Okay.
That's right.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So it's a big warning.
So we
for folks.
just as well do some planning for retirement and use the tools that are available. Just as well do it.
Yes.
It's our best shot.
And if we want a shot at accomplish that retirement, then we're planning on the biggest, most robust economy in the history of the world still being here. And in order to accomplish retirement goals, you need to be along for the ride, which means when markets are down, you can stick with them. Obviously, there's lots of strategies to help mitigate that, but in general terms, you stick with it and know that this is what I need to be part of. This is the boat I need to be on to get me to my retirement goals down the road.
So retirement planning, like I think you even used the term safe retirement planning, and I'm in that group of super confident men that turned around one day and I'm 56 years old. and I was the 25-year-old that, and I'm sorry, don't do what I did. I've got a son that's doing the same kind of businesses as Telton, and he just laughs at me because I tell him my story. It's like at 25, I thought, you know what? I've got so much time and I'm so good at what I do out here that I'm just not worried. And now I'm 57 and I'm thinking like, oh my word, it's happened so fast and I've got minimal, I don't feel safe.
Yeah.
And so you're literally talking about, if you do safe retirement planning, you start doing it and you just consistently trust that it's going to work out.
Yeah.
Work with somebody that knows what they're talking about.
Right. Have a
Work with
framework.
somebody that you
Yep.
trust, because doing it myself didn't work, right? Because my confidence and exuberance got in the way.
It is true. I mean, even if you think about it in the simple terms of, I was actually meeting with a client who's been successfully retired now for years, and he says, I still remember the day. He's older and he's been retired for a bunch of years, so this number has changed. He goes, I still remember the day that my advisor told me, you should really put $2,000 into an IRA and keep doing that. And so, like, it was the difference between had an advisor that suggested it versus not, and now he's hundreds of thousands, close to $1 million at this point, down the road, just off of that one concept.
That one
of
concept.
Like, no, you should really do this. You're like, oh, okay, I guess I will.
Yeah, what the heck?
Yeah, like, I'll start and then I'll keep going.
Instead of the three buddies in the garage that said, you should like day trade Yahoo stock, right? That was a whole different concept, which brings me to my question of, there's people that I work with that are struggling with gambling, and there's a lot of ways to gamble. There's like some forms of day trading where they're just throwing money at the market. There's going to Mesquite and playing cards. Professional gamblers that go down to the big poker tournaments. From a financial advisor standpoint, what is gambling? What's the draw? What's the dangers of it? What's your opinion of it?
So my perspective on that is that the folks that I work closely with, that are clients, or that I'm being the handheld guide through the do-it-yourself program, the Retire Confidently program, all of those folks, somewhere in their top 3 goals, what does money mean to you? Somewhere in those top 3 is, I want to have confidence and security in my retirement. So with that framework, if that's one of your top 3 goals, then gambling just doesn't fit into that. So from a purely financial perspective, gambling could be something else in your life, but if it's geared towards growing your secure retirement income, confidence in your ability to retire, then gambling just doesn't fit into that. And so some folks will even do it kind of flippantly, will use gambling analogies when talking about investing. And the kind of secure retirement income that we're talking about investing in, it's not a good example. It's not a good analogy. Like when you take, let's say I'm going to put money into the S&P 500.
Yeah.
So that's the 500 biggest companies in the United States of America, which is far and away the biggest economy. I mean, every investor around the globe says, even with high inflation, even with political turmoil, even with interest rates moving up, like, I still want a piece of the U.S. economy, and that's the way they do it. They buy in the S&P or they buy in the NASDAQ. And so, in my mind, that doesn't equate to a gamble at all. That's a smart investment decision.
So I'm hearing you say like the S&P 500 are these 500 companies that all have research on what they're investing in, and you're riding the coattails of that research.
Absolutely. They're companies that are trying to make money. So it's the difference between going to Vegas and you're trying to make money against the casino, which are these huge conglomerate corporations that are really good at making money.
I'm picturing this person that I can count to 21. I can do that. I can't do what the S&P 500 does because that's hard, but I can count to 21. But that's not a great research strategy.
Yeah, so it's like you're either on the other side of this highly profitable company, or you buy in the S&P 500 and some little sliver is probably profiting from everybody that's losing money to that highly profitable company. It's like long-term, secure retirement planning-wise, like, who do I want to partner with? I'd rather be invested with this large, highly profitable company as opposed to trying to be on the other side of that.
In the world of psychology, we do a similar thing in Telton. It's so funny how often these dovetail, but my time is spent because I don't understand the market. With gamblers, a lot of times if they're here for like Gamblers Anonymous and they're trying to quit because it's tearing their family up, the overriding principle that you talked about, the safe retirement is one of their goals, right?
Right.
Something for nothing becomes the top goal for these people.
Gotcha.
So gambling mindset is, I can get something for nothing. Like I can throw my chips on the table and get them doubled without working for it.
Right.
And if that's one of your highest priorities, you're going to be a mess, because there's no such thing as something for nothing.
I don't think so.
Second lesson I learned is, like, I used to do the preferred providing for the casinos there in Mesquite when they'd have employees that were having problems, and there's unionized, and so they can't fire them without cause. So I do some evaluating. And one of the things that one of the owners of a casino told me, he said, Eschler, the casinos are in it for a profit. And because I was teasing him about like making all his money gambling, he goes, I don't gamble. And I go, you don't gamble? And he goes, no, the casino house is in it for a profit.
Right.
And that's their driving goal. They're not in it to make you rich.
Right.
And I thought, well, that's common sense, but how many people really take a look and think about that? So retirement planning, when you partner with somebody that their whole aim is to take it away from you, or when you do speculative investing in any fashion, that you're speculating based upon a whim or a rumor or some brand new thing that everybody's talking about, it just makes more sense to go with the research. It makes more sense to take it out of gambling's hands and go with research.
Yep.
Yeah.
For sure.
So enjoyed that piece.
And I think that's probably the other warning, is that my red light goes up and starts flashing and the sirens go off when it sounds too good. I'm like, oh, okay, like, I guess you can do that with some of your own money, but as a fiduciary for my clients, I'm not going to touch it. Like, for instance, every investment, even like what would be considered a no-load mutual fund, if you're kind of into doing it yourself that way, there's an internal cost somewhere. And so the more clear I am about, oh, this is costing me in this way to get this advice or to get this investment, I'm actually more confident, more comfortable with that type of investment than the, oh no, there's no cost to this thing. In fact, we're going to double your money plus some. I'm like, well, I love the idea. I love the concept.
Sounds good.
But it doesn't fall in line with what I found. In fact, I was just recently, there's a group of us that we meet up 3 times a year, really highly successful folks. We're part of a mastermind group. And that was one of the things that we were talking about, is that to accomplish what we've accomplished, then we had to invest. We either had to invest time or money. First, we have to have an idea and expertise, and then you invest time or money. And so you're sitting around a table where from the outside, people will be like, geez, they turned that business, from 0 to $5 million a year of income. And everybody's sitting around and talking about how we were making decisions of where do we invest time or where do we invest money. Nobody's talking about where do we get something for nothing.
Wild. How many of you have heard me say on these YouTube videos in the past, over when we're talking about marriages and we're talking about investing in the marriage, that I say the 2 finite things you have is time and money. You have 168 hours a week. That's all you've got. And you've got whatever your paycheck is a month. That's all you've got. So you have to budget your time. You got to sleep, you got to eat, and you got to go to work if you're working still. You got to go on dates. There's things you have to do with that time, so you got to budget it, and you can't spend more than you make.
Right.
Or you'll go broke, right?
Yep.
That's one rule. I remember my dad, when I got my first credit card, he goes, boy, and I go, yeah, Dad, I'm ready for it. Don't spend more than you make. And then he just walked away. That's his only financial advice. Done.
Good.
Mic drop moment. I wish I'd listened to him. Now I'm listening to Telton instead, and Telton's giving me much the same advice. I've got one final question that springboards off of that, and it's a 3-part. You ready for it?
Yeah.
I'm going to throw 3 of them at you, then we'll go back to the first one. So you got, picture in your mind a young 20-something-year-old couple, newlyweds.
Yep.
Curious what you'd start them with. Then you've got a middle-aged, career-minded person that's pretty successful. He's making pretty good money. He's got his career nailed. He knows what his income is. He can see how he can grow his income, but he doesn't know retirement planning yet. Then you've got the nearing old age, the 50-something-year-old that's done pretty darn good. He's got some assets. He's got a couple of cars paid for. He's got a boat with a little bit of a mortgage on it. Whatever he's got stuff, but he doesn't really have a safe retirement plan. He's really kind of looking at the Social Security benefits being his retirement plan. What advice would you give those 3 very different groups? Because they're in the audience somewhere. So the young 20 newlyweds, where do you start?
So you start where you probably already know it's just time to take action. You start with putting money, like let's say you're just getting started. Look up a Roth IRA. Make sure your income's not too high if you're married over a couple $100,000. But other than that, just start funding a Roth IRA every month. Pick an investment that you're comfortable with, probably something growth oriented like a growth mutual fund or like an S&P 500. That's very, it's super generalized, so you can't take it as individualized advice, but that's pretty safe general information to
Great place to start.
Yeah.
You've heard of these jobs you can get. I've been self-employed my whole life. Nobody's done this for me, but they match up to 3% of what you put into like a 401k.
Yep,
Is that smart to do, or should you not do that?
Do it.
So match it. If you can get matching funds, put as much as you can in to get
Yep.
matched.
Yep.
Okay. I always heard that. I always wondered if that was good advice or not.
Oh
so.
yeah, it's solid. That's
Right.
rock solid. That's one way. If you want to, the one time when you can double your money with no risk and it's actually intelligent. A match is one way to do that. If you put in 3%, there's going to be 6% that goes into your account.
And that's
So
just
that's
yours. Once they give it to you, it's part of your pay package. It's yours. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Some companies, different provisions, they might have time frames when they vest into to those funds.
So just kind of know the rules.
Yeah, know the rules, but in general, that's pretty good. That's pretty solid. Get going with that. So you'll notice that the main key point there was action, right? Starting to take some action.
I think a lot of folks that I talk to in my marriage counseling, it's lots of ideas thrown at people. These young kids, they come out of school, they've got maybe their first really good job that they can see some promise. It's not like their high school job, And there's so many ideas coming that it almost paralyzes them, and I do see a lot of them just tune out and then go to work and forget.
Yeah.
They've got all these good ideas and they plan on it one day to sit down and figure it out,
Right.
and then a decade goes by.
Yeah.
And then in my case, like 4 decades go by. And it's like bizarre how you can let it get away from you. So take
Yes,
action is the
take
first bit of
action.
advice. Like,
Yep. Jump right in.
like one other bit of advice my dad gave me. He says, boy, do something even if it's wrong.
It's actually a really good point. When you're talking about Roth IRA, 401ks, mutual funds, that goes back to the previous point that I don't think it could really be wrong.
Right.
I mean, all you're doing is saying that I think the economy is going to be here in 30 years, and in order to retire comfortably, I'm going to need to ride the wave of that economy, so I'm going to buy into these investments. That's pretty boring, and it's glorious.
Yeah, and I think the boring part is you just kind of put your money there and hopefully forget about it and
Right.
just keep dumping
Yeah.
it in there. Maybe
Every
do
paycheck.
auto deposit, and then
Absolutely, do auto.
my other take on it is let's say you get wealthy down the road and there's a new strategy, you can always have someone like you teach them to do something with that different if they need to.
For sure. Yep.
So they've got these good habits. They're
Yep.
already like not spending the money
Yep.
because it's going into this Roth,
Yep.
and now they're set if they can just be disciplined enough to not just to forget it's there.
Yep, and keep growing.
Second group, middle-aged
Super
group, they're super good with their career now. They're solid. They're making really good money. They haven't really done solid investment planning. They might have some matching funds going, but really they're just right now thinking, oh no, I'm like mid-30s. I really don't want to be like 55 and broke, so I got to talk to somebody. What would you tell that group?
So the first step is that when I talk with you guys, really this group and the next group, almost always to a T, there's going to be some type of comment like, I'm just worried I haven't done it right, or I'm worried I haven't done enough, or it's really interesting. I've never even heard the phrase "I'm behind the 8 ball."
Oh, I have.
But it's just funny. Like I knew plenty of phrases coming out of college, but within a day of starting retirement planning and repeated over and over again, that third group, I would hear that all the time. So I thought, I know what that means, but to be in a awkward position or out of luck, that's how that third group is feeling. So in the middle group, what I hear them saying is it's too late. I hear them saying like, I'm just too
Feel a little
far.
hopeless.
Yeah, I'm just too far behind, and then it kills the action. That's really all that thought does, is takes you from, well, maybe I should get going. Well, I don't know, I'm probably too far behind now. And so we've been bombarded by media of how you have to start soon, and if anything happens in the markets, then you hear all about it, and they never tell you when, hey, markets have fully recovered and you're good to go. In fact, it was faster than we thought. It's just all sensationalized media. And so that is what I would tell you, to just be cognizant. You're not alone, but that thought's going to go through your head of like, I don't know, I'm probably too far behind. I would tell you, don't believe that for a second. In fact, you're in the perfect spot. You've got income now, and it's just time to start taking action, and you're going to be okay. With thousands of meetings, tons of clients at different age groups, by taking action, they get themselves in a good position.
So really, bottom line, what you hear Telton say is much what we do in the marriage counseling world. And again, it's interesting how psychology is psychology. It's no matter how bad your marriage is, if you just sit still and start negotiating little agreements with each other, and then build on those little agreements by keeping your word with each other, and then you start keeping your word on doing stuff that invest in each other, and your marriage satisfaction grows. Like, don't ever just say, you know what, too far gone, let's get attorneys, throw in the towel. Like, it's always worth an investment, always worth it.
That's a great analogy. It's so true.
Yeah.
When you're like, it's too late, they don't even come see you.
Right. They just throw attorneys money.
Yep.
Yep.
Good point. I love it.
It's like, there's a whole other show we could do on that. So that middle group where they're in that 35 age group, it's literally almost the same, like you said, advice, like just start doing something. Get some good advice. Get out of the pessimistic mode, get out of the mode that you're too late, behind the 8 ball, and just start running. That 50-something group that is like, all of a sudden just woke up one day and didn't realize 55 came this fast. Mm-hmm. What do you tell them if they're feeling just scared to death? Because they are panicking.
Yes, they are panicking, which is the reason that I took this, and we've talked about this at length. Like, Matt, I have a good business. I never need to have another client. I can take care of who I have and just be in a really good situation. But there's 10,000 people a day turning age 60.
Yeah.
And there's thousands of them that I think that we could help just by teaching them these concepts in this do-it-yourself program that I've built. Really, it's a handheld do-it-yourself program that I've built, that for that group, most of you are going to have some asset. First off, you're going to have Social Security if you've been in the workforce and you don't work for a specific employer or a state that doesn't pay into that. But if you do work for a certain employer or a state that doesn't pay into Social Security, then it means you have a pension. Yeah. So you absolutely have an asset.
Like there's something there.
Social Security or pension. At that stage, you probably have got some IRAs or some old 401ks or a 401k that you're contributing to. And so you actually do have some assets. And at this point, it's a head game. It's totally a head game. This is the most critical point, to take all these fears and all these concerns and take them, I don't know what my retirement plan looks like, it's only in my head, to take it out of your head and put it on a spreadsheet or in a retirement plan. That's going to be the critical step right then, because it's going to inform you immediately where you are, if your concerns are valid or not. But it's going to transform you mentally into what can I do to take action. Your mind will start to work on it. You won't even be able to help it. As you're building it out, you'll start thinking, oh, maybe I could do this, and that'll increase my income here. Or maybe I just wait 2 years, and now I've got my Social Security figured out how to maximize that, and I've got my pension figured out how to maximize that. And this 401k piece, let's see, if I just push these off, let's just see what 2 years do, and then it gives you a little boost in your income, and you go from this to this, and you're thinking, hey, that's the difference. I think I could do that. Okay, let me run the numbers here. If I pay off my house at this point and save that, how much did that give me here? What if I just keep paying the minimum and save that difference? What does that give me at this retirement age? And it's like, just the ingenuity of the human race goes into work at that point.
I got an example, Telton. You're just going to laugh. I'm probably going to scare you about me. Like, you're going to start to think, why would anyone get advice from this guy? Because there's some things that I just don't do right. Which is funny, because I mean, if I haven't said it, I totally go to Matt for advice. Well, on the business side of things, to get clarity of thoughts, and then I might be all right there.
And then I'm bringing my wife in. So for one thing, he helps us celebrate our successes, which we have a tendency not to do.
Yeah, that's important.
And work through the messes of life. And so, which is funny. So I totally...
I did a full-on happy cartwheel when I realized this, because it got away from me, and it was so interesting. And I bet all of you could do this one little thing. And Telton said it just a second ago, and it spurred this memory of listening to him once, and then my kid just kind of laughed at me once when he noticed some things. What he noticed, and what Telton just said, is change how you spend your money just a little bit, right?
Yep.
So I took a look at the challenge of Telton and my son, and I took a look at apps that I owned. Okay. These are apps that pull a little bit of money out, like $3 here, $8 here, $12 a year here. And then I looked at the television that I watch, and there's like, I think it's the Hula Hoop, the green H one, is that Hulu? And anyway, there's two that we never look at.
Yep.
But they were taking $14 a month. I closed down a bunch of apps that I never use for photography, a bunch of apps that I never use on my iPad that was drawn just a little bit, 2 TV channels, $348 a month. Telton, $348 a month.
That's good. That's great.
I was buying the cloud on 4 different devices. You don't need 2 terabytes of cloud on 4 devices. That's 8 terabytes. My one kid said, "Dad, you use about 50 gigabytes."
Right.
And I don't know what any of that means. But what I got from him is I could close down 3 different drop boxes that I didn't need.
Yeah.
I thought every email had to have a Dropbox, but it doesn't. You can have one Dropbox and run multiple emails. So as you can tell, there's a way that you can. That's a lot of money to invest now. It's now cash that I was dumping.
Oh yeah.
I wasn't spending it on anything I used. It can easily go into an investment account.
Yes.
I bet everybody out there's got something like that, because these apps are sneaky. You do the 30 days free trial. And
then it just
I had no idea
on.
that you have to stop it physically. I thought they just stopped. They were nice. They're not nice.
No,
then they sign you up automatically, and it pulls it out of your account. So some of you already knew that, but some of us don't.
In your investment account, you're buying some fund. Now you're profiting now.
Instead of giving. I was helping all of you have a nice TV because I was paying into it and not using it. It's like buying a gym membership and never going, right?
So I love how it was just a change of mentality, right?
Yeah.
And that's, I think, I'm always surprised. I'm fascinated. I would not have said this 20 years ago when I'm coming out of college and just love investments and investment accounts and retirement planning and just geeking out about that stuff. And I still geek out about that. I did the COVID, write a book during COVID. It ended up being an Amazon bestseller.
That was such a good book. Tell them the title of it. That was an awesome book.
The Secure Solution. And so you can find that on Amazon. So I've still got the inner geek part of me, but I would not have said this 20 years ago, but I'm convinced of it now, that the key to a successful retirement is your thought work. It's actually how you start to think about it. Like your son, all he did is give you this new thought of, I bet you could find some money in like the apps that you're spending. And just that change of thought,
because it never
frees up $4,000 or $5,000.
You don't think about that daily, right? They're just there on your desktop, and I'm assuming they're just not being. It was enlightening. It was like scary enlightening.
And I really think it really speaks to the impact that you make with clients, because I see it on my end. Clients that will work with somebody and get cleaned up with their thoughts, especially if it's in their marriage. Yeah. Right? If they can get cleaned up and they don't have to be perfect. They just have to be open and going down that road together. Yeah. Oh, they're so much farther ahead than you can even imagine. And it's really the difference between they're on track for retirement and it's going to be successful, or it's not. It's their thought work.
It's the same thing.
Yeah, folks that will draw on expertise like yours, they come in so much cleaner, and it shows up in their investments and in their financial plan.
I mean, think about that. Think about clean up some of where your money's going, and then in the marriage world, it's like so many couples work their marriage around. It's kind of like they've got their business and they're raising their kids and all these responsibilities, and they try to shove their marriage time into that, versus our marriage time comes first and everything else gets the leftovers. It's just changing your mindset. And then your parenting gets better, your economy gets better, your work gets better because you're in love. And any of you have ever had a really painful marriage, you know how hard it is to do anything else. But when you've got like this got your back loving marriage that's super connected with a shared vision, you literally will move mountains and everything else.
Yeah.
Just a mindset change.
Totally a mindset change. And just the nature, you probably have a really good answer to this. In my mind, I'm like, I don't know why, but the nature of this world is it keeps wanting to push me out of that mindset.
Yeah.
Even when I get it clear and cleaned up and in line with what actually feels true to me,
yep.
A week or two passes and I'm starting to like go over to these other mindsets where whatever it is, just discouraged.
Yeah.
And so then to come back and get, oh yeah, that's right. Like these are the thoughts
yep.
that actually align with what I am and who I am and what I want to accomplish. It's so powerful.
You create these intentional anchor thoughts.
Yes.
Yep. You got those intentional anchor thoughts so you don't drift too far.
I love it. It makes a huge positive impact. So I can't thank you enough just for the good work that you're doing.
Hey, wrap up all this and tell them what you're going to do next.
So when we were visiting about this, one thing Matt asked me for is he said, after we're done, if you can just give them some quick tips when they just need a little extra something. And so I shot just some really quick videos. And you can access them if you go to teltonhall.com. So just my name, TELTON hall.com /quick tips. It has a dash in it, quick tips. Okay. Hit enter there. You'll put in your email address and I'll just send those just really short, simple, kind of entertaining. I do tell a couple stories from growing up on the ranch and trying to ride my milk cow like a bucking bull. So
that's going to be awesome. We're going to put that link down here by the subscribe button. So we'll put Telton's link on there so you don't have to, because if you're anything like me, you got lost with the slash. Like, what is a /? I have no idea. And then you said dash too, so I know those are two words that mean something. We're going to actually put the link so you don't have to click on it.
Put it in there, click that, stick your email address in there so we know where to send it. And then it's free. There's no cost.
Awesome.
But I mean, if you are listening to Matt, you're in the right place, and if we can give you a little gift, we were happy to do it.
Telton's a best-selling author. He could charge a fortune for that set of tips, so I'm excited for you guys to get that. Look for the little link down there in I don't know where they put it, but it'll be flashing at you. Click on that, click on the subscribe, and get ready for another episode.
Wonderful. Good to be with you, Matt.
Good to be with you. We'll see you all later. Thank you tons.